As soon as we entered December, time has been just flying by. But I also have a lot of creative energy. Maybe because the art market season is mostly over, so I'm not constantly driving back and forth or packaging things. I've been trying to sketch more and to catch up on all these ideas I had or all the practice that I've neglected. And well, there's actually a lot that could fit into those categories, so let's start drawing. Often my sketches have a clear goal. They might be thumbnail sketches for illustrations or studies to practice portraits or anatomy. It can feel very freeing to sometimes just doodle. I was warming up with simple character sketches here, just random portraits, and then naturally that transitioned into mostly these vaguely magical, fail-like or maybe vampiric portraits. I guess that's at this point just where all of my art is heading. Do you have a go-to theme that you always end up sketching? Maybe a specific character or elements of nature that end up in your sketchbooks without you thinking about them? There are still so many things I want to paint this year, so it may feel like I should spend less time sketching and more time painting. But so far it's been pretty balanced. Some of these sketches here will end up as inspiration for an acrylic painting later in this video, and warm-up sketches are a must if I want my actual illustrations to turn out alright. I'd wanted to practice figure drawing a lot this year, and I really didn't do that. So at least for warm-up sketches, here I'm focusing on some quick post studies. I used TrueRef again and set the time first to 1, then 2, and finally 5 minutes. This went terrible at first, as I struggled getting the whole figure down on paper and instead was overly focused on specific details. So I'll have to practice that more, especially the shorter time limit. The only time the figures turn out alright is when I focus on the spine, quickly sketch the shape of that line and then go from there. But I get very easily distracted by details like hair or hands. I actually like this little pose sketch here. Warm-up sketches can be a bit depressing at first because, well, you're not warmed up yet. Your hand is maybe not quite doing what you wanted to do. So I'm glad that even over this short page, this short period of time, I noticed a bit of a loosening of my lines and that I could actually finish the figures within 2 minutes. The 5-minute poses felt strange after those quicker sketches, nearly indulgent with how much time there was all of a sudden. The poses that came up were interesting, though, and I tried to consider the blocks they were sitting on as part of the sketch, to give it a proper sense of space. I've been looking for a live drawing club or class here on Jeju Island, but so far no success on any active ones. So I might just have to be a bit more disciplined by myself and sketch more studies like these. I do miss taking classes and the inspiration and also accountability they bring. Are you taking any? In person or online maybe? I hope that I can find something in the new year. I actually think I ended up overdoing it a bit for the 5-minute sketch and started to shade instead of focusing on just the line art. I get to film a little unboxing today, which is exciting. I'm always worried about ordering books from abroad just because they might arrive damaged, but that's some very chunky packaging. Still going. I've gotten pottery that was less well packaged. That's a quick introduction. The Broken Binding does these really gorgeous special editions of books, and they have science fiction or fantasy focused subscription systems. I've definitely been on their website for way too long, staring at their special editions of Garden of the Moon. I rarely show what I actually work on as an illustrator, right? Because I specifically want YouTube to be where I share experiments and my art practice and little personal pieces, because for client work I want to be 100% focused on what I'm painting and not what I'm filming. There's art in here by other illustrators that I know, and it is signed. When I first found out that the book I might be illustrating for was by Ken Liu, I was incredibly excited because of his short story collection. The Paper Menagerie is one of my favorites. So while actually painting this, like I said, I didn't really film a lot. I wanted to focus on painting, but I wanted to share at least a couple of snippets that I filmed and these little creatures, because there's a refoldable drone as part of the story that I kind of really latched onto while reading and gathering ideas. And since it is described as this foldable mechanic that can take on different shapes, including a spider and a centipede, but I am stupidly afraid of spiders, even though I see them as the valuable creatures that they are. I can't look at images of spiders without my heart racing. So since it's a foldable material drone anyway, I decided to make references and spent an afternoon with a friend folding animals, and I kind of just pinned these to my easel at the right angle and with my lamp shining on them to get the shadows. I like working with 3D programs. It gives me a lot of flexibility, especially when it comes to anatomy references that I'd need multiple people to model for me. But I do like a more hands-on approach to have actual physical mock-ups or models when it's something I can manage. So I'm really happy with how our little drone friend turned out. There are a lot of futuristic and, of course, digital components to the world building. So what I was aiming for was this contrast of all those elements, but painted in traditional media, visibly traditional media, so with like visible brushwork. It was important to keep our protagonist faceless, so that the imagination of the reader can take shape there. But I did have these 3 digital instances of her that I showed as abstract head shapes. While I made a lot of sketches for this composition in general, because it was so wide, like about this would be the general format of this illustration. I had this scrap of Arch paper lying around that was perfect for a color test. Now, especially for a color palette that is this saturated and vibrant, digital sketches, thumbnail sketches and color tests can be really helpful figuring out the entire composition and what goes where. I do need actual color mixing tests before I tackle an illustration like that. The color mixing tests I like to be in the medium I work in, so acrylics, so that I can one-to-one use the same pigments as I would in the final illustration. This is then not exactly what I did in the final illustration, right? There were some changes that happened. In the end, I pushed the blues a bit more to have that contrast between the screen depictions and the actual holograms. This gave me a first feeling for what I was about to do. When we worked on the concept of this, I was still playing with the idea of actually putting in the fluorescent or luminescent elements digitally later. But at some point I really wanted this to be completely traditional, to kind of have that contrast between this futuristic, dreamlike world, because this is a dream, than an actual scene. And I thought that focusing too much on hyper-realistic rendering or digital rendering would take away some of the dreamlike qualities that this would have, with the money building towers turning into skyscrapers with the kind of psychedelic colors. And here he is in the actual painting size, as well as the centipede form, which is a combination of two more or less failed origami projects. One made by a friend, one by me, and we kind of followed this tutorial and both failed, but in different ways. And I think that actually made it more interesting than a perfect symmetrical result. At least that's what I tell myself, so I can sleep at night. The spider turned out much better. And because this was a paper spider, I wasn't scared to look at it. So yeah, sketch, models. When I shared my sketchbook tour video of movie scenes mostly done in graphite, or rather just regular pencil, someone suggested water-soluble graphite as an art supply that I might want to give a try. So that reminded me that I actually have something just like that. It's by Artgraph, and I don't know why I never really experimented with it that much. Maybe because when I reach for pencil, it's usually because I'm working in a sketchbook that doesn't enjoy water being put on it, right? So I just never really found a use case for it, but then I got really curious, and I also found this Derwent Graphitent that's really old and went with me through quite a lot. But the other day when I tried to use it again and wanted to sharpen it, the entire pencil cracked. So now when I sharpen it, it kind of wobbles and it doesn't feel nice to draw with. So I kind of gave up on that, though I do remember this one quite fondly for the color. But ever since I got some mixed media paper sketchbooks, something like a water-soluble pencil suddenly works out so much better than when I just had a regular pencil sketchbook. A lot of these recent character sketches here are kind of in preparation for my Korean vampire or ghost illustration series that I had shared sketches for in the past. And also this is for a small painting for the Bad Apple Artist Collective. This one I was then painting alla prima with acrylics, which can be a bit daunting, but was surprisingly so much fun. And I really like how soft this one turns out. We can really play with textures so much. I don't have to patiently shade in everything that I want to be a soft gray, as I can just blend it out with water, but still have the sharpness of a pencil to then define lines. So yeah, quite happy with this one. We are now getting closer to the end of the year, so I've started filming my sketchbook tour of all the sketchbooks I'm currently actively using. That's why I wanted to get those two smaller sketchbook tours out of the way first, of the movie scene one and the travel sketchbook, as I thought there would be no room in a bigger video to give those the attention they maybe deserve. Yesterday was my day off and I went to a small art shop. There are also little accessories and pottery, but mostly I really like the more abstract photography that the owner of the shop makes. So I'll put those up near my desk. And I also got this as a gift from her. And it's the cutest idea. These are photographs again printed on business cards, and the fun thing is there are 12 of them, or rather 13 because there's a cover, and she turned them into a little calendar. I love the idea because you can just put these on your desk in a little holder. There are a lot of business card holders that you can find, or postcard stands, and they're just so cute. And then next up I got 2 key rings, one here from Sweetan Jeju, which I also know the owner or the artist behind. They are actually not far from where I live. How cute is this? And then one that's not from a Jeju artist, but I just kind of fell in love with. It's from an artist on the mainland, and it's this glazed pottery keyring from Shigimchi room, which means spinach room. I'm so worried that I'll break it, so I'm still thinking if I can maybe use it more decoratively somewhere. Couldn't resist this little avocado friend. There's so many cute little shops all over the island, and there's constant temptation. Who else is a bit stressed out about it already being the end of the year, and now that I have a calendar or two for 2026, I've started to really think about what do I want to do art-wise next year. I have illustration work lined up until I think June is the latest thing I've got currently scheduled, but that's work, and I always want to learn more and improve more and practice, so you'll probably see my usual sketchbook videos and art supply experiments. But yeah, I'm just trying to start thinking about a personal creative focus for the year. Last year was the Dracula art scene. This year was very much focused more on Jeju Island, some more looking outward into my surroundings, landscape painting. But I did feel a bit unfocused now that I'm looking back. Compared to the Dracula year, I have fewer personal large illustrations for sure. So yeah, that's something to think about. Maybe I'll do kind of an art plan 2026 video. Maybe we can do that kind of together. Sit down with a sketchbook, draw our ideas, see if we can find stylistic through lines that might give us inspiration for the entire year for more cohesive works. One project that I've sadly ignored for months and months is the next painting for a series inspired by the Silmarillion. I'd painted Lúthien back in spring, and I have sketches for the halls of Mandos ready, but I've been focusing on client work for most of summer and autumn, and also made art scenes and prints for all of the local art fairs, so I never felt ready to start such a large personal painting. Here, instead, I sketched a few character studies. Even if you don't have time at the moment for a large or complex piece, there are always things to sketch or experiment with in preparation. I know that at some point my easel will be empty and I'll be able to just put the largest watercolor paper pad I own on it and start drawing. There will be 3 central characters and a lot of bystanders in the background. So the more sketches I collect, the better. I used the Irodori Autumn Gouache set here to add some subtle color to the portraits. It's become a favorite of mine for quick portrait sketches, with all of the earth tones, but also the blue that can create cool shadows. Here I was still figuring out how it worked. These were actually some of the very first sketches I made with that set. Right now I'm working on a series of book illustrations that I can't wait to show you more of the process of. The finished illustrations and some work in progress pictures are already on Patreon, but it always takes me a while to edit painting videos. I don't like to wait too long though, because the more time goes by, the more mistakes I see in my art, which is not what you want to feel when staring at your painting process for hours on a large screen. I'm always trying to learn more and to improve, but not from a place of negativity, but curiosity. You can definitely see that I struggled a bit with the colors at first. Again, I was using this palette for the first time for these sketches and hadn't quite figured out how to create all of the brown mixes that I wanted for these different character portraits. Gouache often creates a bit more of a toned down look than acrylics or watercolors, and I tried to embrace that here with very soft color transitions. So I got this book about 2 weeks ago, and I've mostly been reading the section on color. I've also been actually keeping quite a few notes, as I feel like there's a point I should actually be able to use the correct vocabulary for some of the intuitive things that I encounter. And I do find that if I read something about art theory, even if it has practical application, I understand it better and remember it better if I actually try and write down what I read and understood and see if I can rephrase it in my own words. Especially looking at the Munsell color theory, which has this additional focus on saturation, going from very chromatic to desaturated colors, all in a three-dimensional space, is actually the inspiration for the color charts that I've been making recently. And then I also just encountered general advice on things I often struggle with, like the value grouping. So I tend to go very bright and dark in my image. I often bring too much shadow into my lit areas, and the opposite as well, bringing too much light into my shadows, kind of washing everything out, making it look muddled. Putting what I struggle with into words helps. Or even just vocabulary like, oh, if I mix something with white, it is a tint. If I mix a color with black, it becomes a shade, and that makes so much sense. And I think if I learn to use this more consistently in my vocabulary, then I can express myself both more clearly to you watching these videos as I sketch and paint and practice new things, and also kind of in my own mind clarify things instead of just saying a mix or a hue or something like that. This is really a Bible on all things color and light, going into theory without neglecting practical application, showing how we can use this in our paintings, in our art, even photography. This isn't the book for if you're a beginner and want to get a first look at how color and light influence paintings, how to maybe draw for the first time. It's not for that, but if you have a basis of knowledge, if you really want to learn more about these vague concepts you might have heard about, or you want to understand what you're doing by instinct or by practice and see what maybe other artists have found as solutions for it, this is a great, I want to say little book, but it's a great giant book for that. What I love is that there are multiple artists that have worked on this. So you have a variety of different art styles. You have traditional and digital media. And it's kind of art medium agnostic in that you can be a digital artist, a traditional artist, an oil painter, drawing with charcoal. Whatever you do, the information in here is both so general and so specific that you will find something that helps you. It also felt quite nostalgic because, for example, cast shadow construction is something I learned maybe 10 years ago and forgot about, like how you can use the angle of light to construct shadow shapes. So stuff I have to go back to and study again. Ambient light, occlusion. Then there's a separate chapter for light specular, not matte. So we have specular reflections, how mirrors work. Very interesting for me is also translucency, which will include, yes, subsurface scattering. I've been painting so many candles lately. If you're part of my Patreon, you've seen maybe the candle counter that I've started adding to my sketchbook PDFs, learning more about how subsurface scattering works. And then there in the latter third of the book there are tutorials. You learn more about different light situations for different types of day. And I feel like a lot of art books would have bright daylight, evening, and then night. But here there are so many specific examples of what you would have to consider between an early morning, the warm light the sunset brings, how shadows elongate in the evening. So while this is a digital art tutorial, you're not just supposed to follow along, but it gives these very concrete examples of how a scene would look in different lighting situations that you can then apply to your own art, no matter what that looks like. How a color palette would shift overall. And then it continues. There's rain, how that would influence an illustration. I want in the new year to focus more on my background and environment illustrations as well, instead of just characters. So having this as a guideline when I pick a time of day might be really helpful. How to adjust lighting, how to pull the eye into the right direction. Lighting as part of a composition. A more traditional focused tutorial by Nathan Fox, focusing on on-location studies and then how to translate that into a digital painting, which is really interesting. And the same lessons would then still apply if we instead paint this in oils. Then I like that there's a gallery at the end with just some art to admire. I love an art book. I love art books that include sketches and thoughts by the artist, so all the contributors being represented here are really fun to look at. And yeah, I've been very tempted to get the other two as well, maybe in the new year. It's a bit of an expensive book, but I'm really glad I have it. If you're familiar with the James Gurney Color and Light book, this is that but on steroids, in the sense that you're getting really a lot of the theoretical knowledge that if you don't get them in one place like this, you kind of have to piece together from different tutorials. And yeah, maybe because I'm a bit old-fashioned, you've seen my notes, you've seen how I approach subjects. I like having an actual book, like an encyclopedia, that I can open and read and look at example images to really understand what I'm doing. Highly recommend this. I've been leafing back and forth through it multiple times, but mostly went from beginning to the early parts of the lighting chapter at this point. I kind of focused on color first. I'm taking notes, I'm learning a lot. So I think if you have some basic knowledge and want to expand on that, while also looking at gorgeous art in a variety of art media, then I would highly recommend this. It also is just a gorgeous book. The hardcover with this foiled title just looks gorgeous. All the art inside is beautiful. And just so you can see, this is a really chunky book. I can barely hold it. And it does have some of my favorite artists in there, so that's what attracted me to it in the first place. Study material. Even when I feel like I don't have enough time for larger paintings, small paintings may always fit in my schedule. For this one, I tried out painting alla prima with acrylics. Because acrylics dry so quickly, they can be intimidating when I don't have a sketch underneath. But it actually felt very natural and intuitive once I got going. I used raw umber for most of this. I have this particular paint as a slow-drying acrylic version from the Open line by Golden. So it was more forgiving than regular acrylics. I could dilute and smudge and wipe away paint with a bristle brush or my fingers. Raw umber has turned from a color I didn't really know what to do with into one of my absolute favorites over this year. It's so versatile for mixing as it's a very neutral brown, as if you were mixing your paints with a grey tone to tone them down, but the grey has warmth and character. It's also very versatile on its own, which I really got to feel here. Undiluted, it is a really dark brown and can look nearly black if applied opaquely. But diluted with water, I can create very subtle shades ranging from grey to this warmer brown. And then when mixed with titanium white, it neutralizes into this beautiful barely there grey tone. Once I had the base blocked in, I branched out a bit to other paints. Just a bit of Viridian green and Terre Verte hue, which is a very transparent green shade. And then here you can see me mix the raw umber with titanium white to create that much cooler grey tone. Titanium white is a very cool white compared to something like a buff titanium or even a zinc white or lead white. It will really cool down your paint mixes, so that's something to keep in mind when working in limited palettes as well. For example, in the Zorn palette as well, titanium white creates the cooler tones in that palette. Since I was working alla prima, I had a lot to focus on when it comes to just blocking in shapes and capturing light and shadows, so I was glad that I could keep the color mixing very simple. I used some Smalt Hue, which is a very transparent blue-violet shade that I love for subtle, cool highlights here on the skin. It goes well with a variety of different skin tones, and I often use it when painting night scenes, as it, to me, looks like moonlight. I think of these two portraits as two court ladies at the unseelie Fae court. So I wanted to give them a hint of eeriness with those empty or glowing eyes, and I added these butterfly, or rather moth wings, as if they were glimpsing from behind a curtain to observe whatever is going on. Maybe the moth wings form some kind of parasol they use when they go out in daylight. So it was important to me to capture the shadow shapes that these wings would cast on their faces as well. As I continued blending, I was really glad that I picked pigments that I had as open versions, so the slow drying acrylics, and I could always go back in and readjust my mistakes. I used just a bit of green mixed in with my raw umber and titanium white for the final highlights, to give again the impression of something a bit otherworldly. And then towards the end, I also wanted to go back in with raw umber to darken some of those shadows I'd lost a bit while blending. The glowing eyes were a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. Some of that diluted raw umber stayed untouched there when I first painted shadows, and by contrast, at the very end, it really looks glowing and ethereal and much warmer than the skin tone. It's hard to believe that it's the same paint as everything around the eye, right? I decided to mirror that shape of an eye with this final detail on the moth wing as well. As I'm preparing to go to a large 3-day book fair event, I've been making a lot of stickers to kind of have a wide variety of them ready for people to combine into their own sets as they wish. And one of the stickers is with this Fae cord motif. I really like how all of these turned out. I have more stickers incoming, and they will be showing up on Patreon this December and maybe in the new year as well. It feels strange to now be planning things for 2026 already. I still have so many small and large projects I want to focus on, and there are some days near the end of December where I'm pretty free and can maybe start some personal, larger paintings. Do you have any plans for the rest of the year? Any last-minute projects you want to finish, or maybe something larger you're saving for the new year? Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in my next art video.